Hello and welcome to this Work Mobile Getting Started guide. In this guide, we're going to look at the process of taking your original paper-based form and turning it into a Work Mobile solution. We're going to start that process by building your first form. So let's dive right in. Once we're logged into our Work Mobile account, we should see this first screen, the dashboard. On the dashboard is an option called Forms. If we click that button, it'll bring us through to another page. This page is where all our forms we're going to create will be listed. Because this is our first form, there's nothing in the list right now. If we go to the left-hand side menu and click New Form, that will bring up the options to give that new form a title and a meaningful description. Okay, I'm going to call this Job Sheet and I'm going to put in the description, this is our first form. If we click Save, we're then brought to the Work Mobile Form Builder page. Before we continue, let's take a moment to look over some of the key features on the Work Mobile Form Builder. The Form Builder is basically made up of the following areas. The toolbox. This contains all of the different tools that you will use to build your Work Mobile form. You can hover your cursor over each tool to find out its name. For example, hover over the first tool in the Basic Data Capture section, the Text Box tool. The text box tool does pretty much what you'd expect it to. It allows you to capture text on your Work Mobile form. So, for example, in our practice form, the job sheet, we want to capture the customer name by allowing the engineer to write the customer name on the form. We therefore use a text box tool to do this. The canvas is essentially a virtual mobile device which you use to build up your form. To do this, you simply grab a tool from the toolbox and drag it onto the canvas. The canvas allows you to rearrange and delete tools from the form should you need to do so. The Properties panel allows you to configure each individual tool once it's been placed onto the canvas. So for example, you might drag a text box tool onto the canvas. The Properties panel will allow you to give it a meaningful name, for example, customer name. You can also set properties, such as the minimum and maximum number of characters that you'll allow your users to enter. Each tool has its own unique set of properties. The information window lets you know if there are any problems with your form. Any problems are reported here, giving you the opportunity to correct them before saving your form. Let's take a moment to have a look at the properties of the text box. The first property is the hidden property. It's sometimes useful to have a tool on the form which is hidden by default and only made visible when a certain action happens. If you set the hidden property of the tool in the Properties panel, then this icon will be highlighted. The required or not required property allows you to specify by default if the field is mandatory or not. That is, the user has to input a value before proceeding. If you set the required property of a tool in the Properties panel, then that icon will be highlighted too. Once you become more familiar with Work Mobile, you'll want to make your forms even more powerful by using formulas to carry out more advanced validation or calculations. If you've entered a formula into the tool, then the formula icon will be highlighted. This button is the Remove button, and it completely removes the tool from the canvas. So as you can see, the icons give the form designer some visual indication regarding the property configuration for each tool on the canvas. Okay, so now we're just going to go ahead and start adding all the tools we need onto our job sheet. Firstly, we're going to add the address field. Drag a text box from the toolbox onto the canvas. On the Properties panel, enter address into the caption field. Click Multi-line in the Appearance section of the Properties panel. An address is usually entered over a number of lines, so this configures the text input box to behave differently and allow multiple lines of text to be added. Now set the max length value in the validation section from 50 to 300. This increases the number of characters the user can enter for the address from 50 to 300. Okay, now let's add a date field. For the visit date, we could use a text box control again. However, this means more typing for the user, and we need some way to ensure they'd entered a valid date. So for this reason, we'll use a calendar tool, which is better suited to the task. Drag a calendar tool from the toolbox onto the canvas, and on the Properties panel, enter visit date in the caption field. Okay, adding the visit type field again, we could simply use a text box here. However, this company has 3 different types of visit that it makes, which are installation, service, and repair. It would make more sense, therefore, to allow the user to pick from a list of options. Not only does this require less typing, it also means that the data you capture is consistent. Drag a drop-down list from the toolbox onto the canvas, and on the Properties panel, enter Visit Type into the caption field. To add the potential options, you simply type each option into the Entries box located in the Values section of the Properties box. After each entry, hit the Enter key on the keyboard to start a new line. The Entries box should look like this now. Next, we're going to add an amount field. Here we want the user to enter a numeric value, so we're going to use a different type of tool that specializes in capturing numeric data, the number tool. The number tool allows us to specify what type of number is allowed. For example, whole numbers or numbers with decimal points. We can also define acceptable ranges. Must be greater than 0 or less than 10,000. Drag a number tool from the toolbox onto the canvas, and then on the Properties panel, enter amount into the caption field. Because we want the user to enter the monetary amount into this box, select 2 decimal places from the number type selector in the validation panel. We also don't want the user to enter values less than 0, so type 0 into the minimum number field in the validation panel. Now we're going to add a signature field. In order to capture our customer's signature using the touchscreen, we simply need to use one of the media capture tools. Not surprisingly, it's called a signature tool. Drag the signature tool from the media section of the toolbox onto the canvas, and then in the Properties panel, enter signature into the caption field. That's it. We're finished building our first Work Mobile form. So let's save it and move on. To save your form, click the Save and Close button on the top right of the screen. Before your users can see the form that you built on their mobile device, there's one last action that needs to be carried out. That's publishing your form. To publish your form, simply click the Form is Unpublished button. Your form should now be published.